Alright, let's talk about proper gain structure and these various inputs that we have. We want to set the input gain so we have a nice, strong, clean signal. And how do we do that? Remember, we were talking about the input gain button. Now, typically you would have somebody up on stage who will be talking into a microphone. Make sure they actually talk and sing at the volume that they will be performing at. Quite often these people get up there and say, test, test. And then they get on the phone, they get on the microphone later during their performance, and they are singing their brains out. No, they need to do that for you during the test. And be sure and remind them, hey, is that as loud as you're going to be singing or talking during your sermon or during your solo or song or whatever you're doing? And they say no. They said, give me what you're going to be doing. This is where a lot of people fall short. They don't get the proper gain structure. All right, let's take a look at channel, I think it's channel 13 I'm plugged into. Now here we are, channel 13. I have the AFL on so I can actually check with my 13 segment or whatever, how many 14 or 15 segments LED view meter over here as well. So I got a microphone plugged in just like I would up on stage coming into the board, and I have the channel muted so I don't have to worry about people hearing them doing the test at the moment. Later on we'll unmute the channel so they can actually hear themselves as well as we can hear them through the system. So I've got the microphone up to my mouth, I'm checking. I should be getting some sort of signal down here, but I'm not getting a signal down here. So what's going on? Well, does the microphone that I have require 48 volts phantom power? It might, because even though it's a handheld and there's a good chance it's a dynamic, it might actually require the 48 volts. So while it's in mute mode, let's go ahead and apply our phantom power to that channel. There we go. Now we have activity because the microphone is receiving the 48 volts that it needs in order to operate. Now our level is kind of weak right there. Notice down in the 4-segment LED we're only barely getting more than just one green flashing light, and over here we're just only getting a couple over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the input gain, bring it up. Alright, somebody's talking and they're, hey, give me some singing or talk as loud as you're going to talk into that microphone. Now I'm getting a reasonably good signal. A good signal on the 4-segment LED is to get just so it's tickling up into the yellow a little bit, but we don't want it up in the red because that would be distorting. That's overpowering the channel. And you'll notice that this, remember I told you before, the 4-segment LED kind of corresponds with this one. If you're up in the yellow, it'll be up in the yellow here for these 3 yellows. And if you're overloading it, check, check. Now, in a situation where you have too much of a strong signal, typically a keyboard player or a bass guitar player or a guitar player or anything instrument that's plugged in, or kick drum, drums in general, anything that's got a really strong signal to it. If it's too strong for the channel, check, 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 and you find yourself decreasing the attenuation or the input gain on that particular channel, you can also, remember, you can also hit the PFL, the pad button, which will knock about anywhere between 20 and 30 dB SPL out of the signal. Watch the difference here between me hitting this button and leaving it up. Leaving it up is most of the time you will have it up, but if you have like a really strong signal, such as a bass player who's playing his instrument too loud, or a keyboard player, Kevin, who is playing his keyboard too loud or sending you too strong of a signal, checked, it's too strong. I hit that button and all of a sudden, look, it knocked it way out. This is perfectly fine for it to be doing. And then of course, then you can actually bring the gain back up a little bit so it's reasonable for usage in that particular situation. Now watch what happens. I've got this gain up almost all the way to get a good signal out of this. And remember, of course, we want to be able to work with a signal that's reasonably up close to the yellows, preferably at least up to the yellow, maybe tickling into it a little bit, and occasionally they might actually get up into the strong yellows, but we don't want the red because that means it's overdriving that particular channel that we're monitoring through the AFL button. After fader listen, after fader level, whichever you want to call it. So at any rate, getting back, now if I take the pad out, check, I'm overloading that channel, so I can also decrease it this way as well. Most of the time you won't have to have the pad in. You'll be able to do your signal adjustments with the pad out, but like I said before, bass drum, kick drum, any kind of instrument that has a lot of plosives in it, or exploding, or quick transients in it, go ahead and put that pad in line to help tame it a little bit. Now, of course, we can go down through our EQ, we can listen to those. I'm going to dwell more about EQ later on, but don't over exaggerate your EQ for right now until I get a video series together for how to adjust and set EQ correctly. But you can also make adjustments, fine adjustments for the EQ. Keep in mind, the EQ is there basically, some people use it for enhancement. It's mainly originally there to help correct for any deficiencies in your signal source, such as the microphone. Some microphones are a little weak in certain frequency ranges, depending on the kind of microphone, the quality of the microphone, and whatnot. They're a little deficient. They may roll off at around 100 cycles, in which case you need to boost up a little bit of bass in that particular area to compensate that for frequencies that might be missing because the microphone is just not able to do it. Or you can actually use it for enhancement. Ideally, you want to just correct for the deficiencies in your signal source with the EQ. Going down, of course, now we have our auxiliaries. Auxiliary 1, I believe, is set for sending an effects signal. So any of these input channels that have auxiliary 1 brought up, go to auxiliary 1 master. It goes out to the effects unit down below, and then comes back in to channel 15. Was it 16? 15? Channel 14 here. I'll do a separate video later on about using the effects channel. That way we can introduce either reverb and or delay, which is echo. So you can actually get the sound of echoes, or sound like you're in a larger room, like a cathedral, depending on what kind of effects you use. Use them sparingly, because a lot of people get overzealous about using the effects to try and enhance the voice, and as a result, they quite often go too much with the effects. At any rate, I'm going to show you how we can set this up for sending signal out to auxiliary 6, so that if you got somebody who's up on the main stage who's singing, you can either put a floor wedge monitor in there, in which case you'll be using either auxiliaries, I think it's auxiliary 2 or 4 off the stage, outputs into a wedge. I'll talk about that later in a later video, or the overhead, which is auxiliary 6. If you pay attention, I will actually now, since I've got a good signal level here going, I'm going to go ahead and bring that up in the main mix. Check, 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 1, 2, check, check, 1, 2, check, 1, 2. I'm going to go ahead and mute the main output for right now. Check, 1, 2, 1, 2. I'll mute those as well. Since I have a reasonably good level now of this channel, I want us to go ahead and set up a mix for this voice coming through the speaker, the top fill. We call it a top fill monitor that is mounted above stage. That way the singer can hear the music coming out of one of these two channels typically, as well as hear themselves in the mix. And if you notice, I got the auxiliary 6 about 3/4 way up, which is a standard running range for that. And so I'm going to bring my voice up, and let's see, I should show up. Yep, I show up above stage. So the person singing, which is, this is kind of bass heavy, the person singing can now hear themselves singing with music that we might have coming in on one of these two stereo channels, or wherever we have music coming in and assigned to auxiliary 6. We can also have the pastor who's in what, the either 9 or 10, one of these two channels. We can also put I bet it's in 10. We can have them coming through auxiliary 6 as well, so they can hear themselves coming through the mix, through the system. At any rate, moving on. And of course, if I mute this channel, will I disappear out of that monitor? Quick question, will I? I should. Check, check. Yep, I'm out of that main monitor that's hanging up above the ceiling. Now, in certain situations, you may want to use the, let me get this focused on the choir area. Okay, now we have a pair of speakers that are mounted up above the choir area, or we're going to call it the choir area, whatever you want to call it area now. Those are unique, have their own unique mix coming out of the matrix. It's either out of 1 or 2. I can't remember off the top of my head. We'll find out in a minute. But if you want to be able to play music, or they want to play canned music, we can send that sound, that music down the line to, as well as their vocals, so they can hear themselves out of that matrix. Well, how do we do that? Well, we got our signal going good and strong out of this channel, and we're going to assign it so it's coming out of check, 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 check. Let's see, let me find it real quick. Check, 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 check. All right. So we should be check, 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 check. Why am I not? Oh, it's a sign there. So we should be able to get sound coming out of check, 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 check. All right, let's stop the video for a minute and find out. Okay, so say that we want to send a signal of several singers over to the choir area. There's two of those microphones. There's two of those speakers, mini speakers, hanging over there for the choir to be able to hear either the sermon, or so that they can actually be used as monitors for the singers to either hear the keyboard player, who might be located in a different part of the room, or whatever, so you can hear different various mixes put together. And of course, those matrix are actually, let me see if I got it set up correctly here. Check 1 2, check 1 2, check 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 1 2, 1 2 check 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 1 2. Oh, it's auxiliary 6. Ah, here we go. Check check check. There we go. All right, so now we can, if we send their vocals, might send them over the speaker that's over top of the stage through auxiliary 6, or we can send them through the matrix. Check 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 1 2. And I got these. Matrix 1 is for the audience area as well as the fellowship hall. That would be, let me just double check that. Check 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 1 2 check 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 1 2 1 2 check 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 1 2. I believe that is matrix number 2 that feeds the speakers for the audience or the congregational areas, and then matrix number 1, check check check, is for the 2 speakers that are in the choir area. So you may want to send a little bit of the signal down through left and right. Remember left and right? Send that signal down left and right to matrix 1, which is taking, remember, it's taking a little bit of left and right and sending that directly to the amp that's supplying power for those speakers in the choir area. If you also may want to go ahead and put a little bit of that also in the congregation area so the congregation can hear them singing as well. Just to give you an idea of how that can be used, as well as the auxiliary 6, which is the speaker hanging over top of the stage area. Check, 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 check. Yep, well, there it is. Okay, and that's it for this video series. Later on, we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about how to send these signals. You can actually set signals for various sound sources that are coming in, set them up for the various output sources that you're going to be choosing, such as the matrix, as well as left and right, and so on and so forth. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I want you to get familiar in the meantime with the basic how to set the gain structure properly. And of course, you can also monitor left and right, or groups 1 and 2 in the headphones. You can just pinpoint those in what the final mixes will be in those. No, excuse me, forget that. That's for the pink noise and 1 kilohertz signal. So forget that. That's not what that's for. All right, more later.